This is one sentence you said the other day in a mastermind. So this is private to Augusta, but we're gonna bring it public. You just threw it out there, and I'm gonna classify this as not financial advice.
Okay.
This is one sentence. I sold all my individual stocks and moved everything to ETFs.
Yeah.
No context. You just said it.
So I switched it to 6 different ETFs. So I can name them off if you want.
Welcome back. Another episode, The C-Suite Unfiltered with Mike Andes. And for those of you that are listening to the audio version of this podcast, you just heard a clip play at the start of this episode that is from almost exactly a year ago. I believe it was recorded almost exactly a year ago and then aired mid-August. So that was a clip where we were talking about Mike's stock strategy and his investment strategy. So I wanted to bring that up a year later because you basically said a little over a year ago, hey, I'm taking everything out of individualized stocks and I'm just putting everything into ETFs, dividends, all that kind of stuff. And then you actually listed them. You told everybody what your picks were. So first question to Mike Andes is, has your trading strategy changed in the last year, or have you just kind of held those ETFs and dividend stocks?
Yeah, so same strategy. Remember, the reason I did it was mostly to save myself time. Also, I knew I needed a lot of money for co-pilots. So like that was settling in, that reality was settling in a year ago. So yeah, so it's still all in dividends or not dividends, index stocks. I think I can show you. Actually, here we go. Yeah, here we go. So pretty much all those I listened to you saying the only things I have added, is I added in gold and silver. That's
Oh,
it.
nice. There you go, dude. Raw materials.
Yeah, dude. So I think like 15% of my portfolio, let me double check that to 2%. Yeah, so about 15% of my portfolio is gold and silver. All the rest
Okay.
is the ones I mentioned last time. So IVV, big fan of IVV, by the way. It's better than SPY in terms of the or QQQ, better than in terms of how much you spend on the maintenance costs. So I think on, if I correct me, I could be wrong, but QQQ, which tracks the S&P 500, I think is a 0.2% cost expense ratio. So not that you have to pay to be able to be part of the index, whereas with IVV it's 0.02. No, it's 0.04. It's basically like 20% the cost. So, which over the course of time adds up. So yeah, still all index funds. So I don't have to check this thinking stock market. Now, was that a good strategy? All in all, probably not. I have a 17% return year for the past 12 months. If I would have stayed in the stocks I went before or more high risk, probably would have made more. However, I don't know if I would have had the stomach when they all dropped 50% earlier this year to double down. So I doubled down during the April crash.
Yep.
I doubled down, like literally doubled how much I had in stocks, and so I moved everything liquid into stocks during that April week, and that's crushed, dude. That's
Yeah.
crushed.
Well, I was going to
So
say, I don't want to cut you off there, but you said 17% return. That means you had to have doubled down during that dip, because I did pull up S&P over the last year, and then I pulled up the Dow over last year, just as, looking at market temperatures. S&P over the last year up 18.3% from from August of last year to August of this year. And then the Dow is up 11.1% year over year to date. So you basically beat the Dow, but you still didn't outperform the S&P because you doubled down though in April. Is that correct?
yeah, and then I also have so for example, small caps still have not rebounded. So if you listen back to that thing I talked about, how small caps have been like underperforming, they're still underperforming. So that kind of dragged me down. If you took out that one index fund from here, I think I was at like 20 something. Anyways, all that to say, the strategy is good because I don't have to look at it, and it didn't go down very as much as all those other stocks did during the crash, and I was able to just like dump money in. I basically have all the money we need to be able to finish the headquarter building. We just need stinking permits now. So sore subject as always, but
Yeah.
I have all the money required now with the sale of the house, which just, by the way, full
Oh, cool.
price cash offer. Let's go.
Yeah, I saw that in your vlog. Shout out Bree.
Oh right, yeah. So So yeah, that'll close this month, and then I have all the money, so that'll be great. Like nothing will affect the businesses. So this is the thing: we should have been moved in there like 3 years ago, but 3 years ago we would have had to take out probably some debt. Now, like the entire thing will be paid for, and I'll have a good chunk of money ready for the next building, which I will. The day we get occupancy, I'm gonna have another permit application for the next building, which will be at least 2 to 3 times bigger. So, knowing that it'll take probably 3 to 4 years to build, and we won't need it right away, but we will need it in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that is the overall strategy. Is just like, I don't really want to hold a ton of stocks.
Mhm.
It's more a matter of like it's a good place to hold money because I can, we have 17% increase in versus like 3 to 4% in a savings account.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. Now, did you, when you double down on, well, obviously double down on those ETFs, but with the gold and silver being brought in, was that a play that you made based around like macroeconomics or world events? Because obviously, typically, and this is Lee's very rudimentary understanding of it, is that a lot of times raw materials will typically have a bump when there are massive world affairs, i.e., Ukraine, Russia, i.e., Israel, Palestine. So, is that kind of, were you watching the temperature of those world events, and then seeing if raw materials were going to rip because of it? Because usually people like the safety of like, okay, gold, you can't take gold from me in times of war, right? But in times of war, a whole economy can get wiped out due to one, missile strike or whatever it may be.
So I bought gold and silver. I might need to fact check myself. I think it was June. So that's the most recent.
Mm,
And that's also why like the performance doesn't look good because I put more money into the account. So like if you look at like what was in the account last year, it's a higher return. I just put in quite a bit for the 15%. So the the reason I did though is because when the big beautiful bill came out,
mhm.
I didn't put it in July 4th when it came out. I think it was at the beginning of June when it first got written and went for like it was just kind of pitched out there. What I was looking for was, are they going to actually take what Doge was doing and implement that into the budget? And as soon as I saw like, oh no, they're adding tons of fluff. This is increasing the deficit. As soon as I saw that, like the first day, that's when I bought all of my gold and silver, and that's
Mm,
when it started to pop. It started to run. The past 3 months have been really good for gold, because of that. Like, okay, with this new budget, we know for the next 4 to 5 years, we're going to keep running massive deficits. We're going to keep going massively into debt, which is going to cause inflation. And so, gold is not a productive asset. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is certainly a safeguard, especially because like I don't want to think about my investment portfolio, and I don't want that money to go anywhere because I need it for the building. Like I
mhm.
would much rather convert that cash into steel, concrete, and glass, in a headquarter building that is a productive asset and pays me rent. I would
Yeah.
prefer that. Um, because at least I know I have control of businesses and we will not run a deficit and we will be profitable. So I would rather that, but for the meantime, I need it to be as safe as possible. So
Yeah, fair. No, that makes sense. Gotcha. Well, I sent you some screenshots. Don't pull them up just yet, but I thought, instead of talking, very high level of this is the investment strategy, this is what Mike prescribed to a year ago. Let's just
I
say
did not prescribe
hypothetically.
it. I did not prescribe it. That's just what I
It's
was
fair. It's
doing.
fair. You shared. I did explicitly say multiple times. This is not financial advice. This is you just sharing what you're currently doing. So I did put that caveat out there. But now let's just say hypothetically, there's some screenshots I sent you. Let's just say hypothetically, someone thought, this could be a fun experiment. Let's open a Roth IRA. Let's put a little bit of money into it and just buy everything that Mike said. So he sent you some screenshots of someone that did this, i.e., me. So I don't mind saying this. So I said, and responsibly. So I just took $3,000 and I just was like, I'm just gonna buy everything that Mike just said, and then I'm gonna
Uh-oh.
put a Google reminder on my calendar a year from now, assuming we're still doing the pod. So apparently, I had faith we'd keep doing this,
Dude, this is
and we're gonna
hilarious.
bring it up. So I can share these on the screen while we talk
That's
about
awesome.
them. So I sent you 3 screenshots. The first is my purchase orders, so you can see what I bought. So not a crazy amount of any of them, right? It was like 3 of one of the Schwabs, 4 of one of the Schwabs, 3 of
Okay,
Vanguard,
you
5
went
of
you went
Russells.
extremely heavy on Russell 2000, dude. That's why this is underperforming.
Yeah, 100%. And and hey, I took what you said at like face value. I was like, I'm not even
Oh,
gonna
okay.
think. I'm not even gonna
Okay.
think. I'm just gonna do exactly what he said he's doing. And you
Okay.
said that the Russell 2000 is massively underperforming. So I was like, perfect. I'll put a little bit more weight into that. and then everything else will just kind of evenly spread. So yes,
That's
that one
funny.
obviously got the most, and then everything else is pretty evenly spread. So in total, invested just over $2,800. I wasn't able to spend the even 3,000 because obviously stock prices are different. But I was like, okay, how can I spend the most of this $3,000? So you can
Here's the
see.
difference. Here's the difference. See that? This is the Russell 2000 in my portfolio. It's 8%. I don't know if you can see that. It's
Yeah, yeah.
8% of my portfolio. Yours is like 35% of your
Yeah,
portfolio.
of this one account, yes. Like you could pick it apart, but this is for the people. All right, this is just a
Okay.
demonstration for the people. All right, so you can see the purchases there. Now I sent you a performance chart, so you can look at
Yep.
that performance chart if you want. So you can see there's that big dip right in late March, early April
Yep.
that happened, and then you can look as I was just referencing those numbers. It's a performance chart comparing this Roth IRA account to the S&P to the Dow. Now it's up 10.8%, so just slightly underperforming the Dow and drastically underperforming the S&P, and that is primarily based on what I saw due to the Russell shares. The holding. So any thoughts on that performance chart or initial reactions? I never told you I did this. I've been sitting on this for a year. I was like,
That's so funny.
literally after that episode, I was like, okay, I'm gonna open another account. I'm gonna go ahead and just put $3,000 into it. I'm gonna buy everything you said, and we're just gonna see what happens.
Okay, so I want to
And
make a point. I want to make a
yeah,
point. There's a difference between maximizing for returns and maximizing for safety. And
totally.
so when you diversify a portfolio, you are never trying to maximize returns. Because if you're trying to maximize returns, you're trying to seek the greatest alpha, and you're trying to go for the highest return asset, which is traditionally large caps have been very, very good the past 10, 15 years. When you're doing a diversified portfolio, what you're protecting against is those going down by 50%. And if they did, if you have a diversified portfolio, maybe your portfolio goes 10 to 15% down. So the one time on your stock chart where I almost start outperforming them is during a crash, and that's during April, right? And so the other part of it is during a crash, I'm like a well diversified portfolio. Like for example, if you look here, um, I dropped, let's just call it 15%. It dropped about 25% ish
Mhm.
back in April. And so when you have those wild swings, people jump from the market faster. Like they pull their money out, or they're
Mhm.
less inclined to double down and do what I did, which is put more in because like I know I'm diversified.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would just say when people start comparing percentages, they don't take into account the safety measure that I am trying to add to my portfolio. So like last year, the reason I don't need to watch it anymore is because I know it's safer. And I know that when it's crashing, I just need to know long term if I think the market's going to go up. I don't need to worry about okay, it's like the U.S. for example. Am I way too over indexed in the U.S.? No, because I have
Mhm.
VT, and that's the Vanguard Total World Index. So like I got thousands of other companies outside the U.S. So I'm maximizing for diversity and safety, not maximizing for returns. Just
Yeah.
to be clear.
No, 100%. And this is I'm not picking your strategy. I'm just using this account as an example. It's like the hypothetical, okay, Mike gave us stock picks, but like who's actually picking them, right? Like is anyone going to do it? And I was like, I will. I'll just do it. I'll put a Google reminder on my calendar for August 1st to look at that account. Obviously, I looked at it a lot off and on just to see it, but I was like, let's just see what happens. So you can see if you go to the last screenshot I sent you, and I don't mind putting that one up on the screen either. It's just basically a snapshot of this portfolio, this Roth IRA as a whole. So the net account value is now $3,297. The total unrealized gains at this point would be $244, aka 8.5% increase there. And then you can see obviously if there were dividends or dividend yield, and then the total gain on each individual stock. So yeah, there was only one that technically is down overall, but that is a dividend stock as well with the highest dividend yield percentage. So any thoughts while looking at that? This is like I put the money in, I didn't touch it. I just wanted to see
Yeah,
what would happen over a year.
that's cool. That's cool. What are my thoughts? Yeah, definitely. Like the balances aren't the same in terms of like how much I put in versus you, but like I think it's
Of
very
course.
cool. I also think um I'm just looking here 13, 14 feet. Yeah, like the world and in the US, that was pretty good. Yeah, so like I think it's just a function of what are you like optimizing for? And I think if I would have been doing my individual stocks like I was a year and a half ago, I don't know if I would have had the intestinal fortitude to double down in April.
Mm.
And so when you're doing diversity of stocks, you don't have to be right on every single one. And you don't have to watch like the analysis of the stock, for example. So, for example, like if you invest in Tesla, really for the past 5 years, it's been flat, right? So everyone like, oh, we got in Tesla. Those are all the early investors, but like the past 5 years, basically been flat, and it's a wild ride. So like,
Hmm.
you also have to have the intestinal fortitude to not sell when everything is going negative against this company. Um, I just didn't want to have to even think about that because the past year I needed to focus on the businesses. So
Hmm.
that's where it's like, okay, I'm diversified over 10,000 companies across my portfolio. So if Tesla has a horrible day and drops 20% because of something Elon says, who cares? It doesn't really
Yeah.
affect me. So I just didn't want to get caught up in the news cycle. And if you're doing individual stocks and you have like 3 or 4 bets, you kind of got to stay on tune with what's going on.
Hmm.
And I did not have the time for it. So I was blocking out the noise, and I'm happy to take my 17% annualized returns instead of 20% in order to be able to not think about it and know that when there's a crash, it doesn't go down as much.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that's like, what I wanted to show with this experiment was, look, if you just buy and hold a slightly diversified portfolio, albeit a small portfolio, but just to get an idea of what it actually looks like. And when I was checking it, and I remember checking it during the crash, I was like, oh man, like we're only 3 months away from when we're going to record this. I was like, this is not going to look good. And then it rebounded. And then it came like right back to normal annualized returns, 10, 11%. So yeah, I thought I would share that with you. I thought it would be funny. Now, I will say, if I can just put, a small feather in my cap, so I don't look like the total dunce that this may make me look like, is
Wait,
my
dude, no one's
main.
complaining. No one's complaining about a 9% return, dude,
Yeah,
plus dividend yield.
yeah.
Honestly, you made $244. I feel like I should be getting a cut of it.
Whoa, 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 hey, whoa! It was not financial advice. No, no, no. It was unsolicited information. I didn't even ask you. I said
I'll
and
take my commissions
I said you
after the
changed your
pod.
strategy. I didn't ask for the tickers. You just said I changed my strategy. You gave them to the people freely, so that's on you. No crying in the casino, as Chamath Palihapitiya likes to say. Now, what I will say in my individual brokerage account, my main account that I trade in, that one's up over 16%. So
Good
I
job.
played that one a little bit better. I am still let's get the joke out there. I am still holding space, Virgin Galactic. We got an earnings call later today. Very excited for that. It's not looking
Uh,
good. I'll just say that. I'm just holding it at this point, dude. I'm just holding it. It's my meme stock. All right, we all have one.
uh,
It's like a badge of honor, a badge of shame. But including that space, that's in my main individual brokerage account. I bet if I took that out, I'm probably like 18, 19% returns. That's just really hurting my
I,
portfolio.
I think it's important to know, like, if you're investing money, what the purpose of the capital is. So, for example, the money that I have set aside in my current portfolio, like in Robinhood, for example, is earmarked for the headquarter building. And if we had a crash, and this is why I did it last year too, is like if we had a crash, I can't be like, oh, now I've got to go get debt for the headquarter building. I need that money to stay safe. So I'm willing to reduce the amount of upside in order to make sure that money stays safe. But it's a whole lot better than putting in a savings account where I would have got made 3 to 4%. So
Mhm.
um, like, but then for example, like my 401k and my IRA that is earmarked for what, 30 years from now, very much more high risk on. Because like the money's sitting there and it's either I want it to like 10 trillion X or it's not gonna be a meaningful amount to me at 59 years old. And so it's very high risk. Yeah, the returns are better because it's been a good year. But also in bad years, that money will collapse.
Yeah.
So I think like what is the intention, what your age is if you're doing a retirement account? Is the money earmarked for something else, or are you just trying to grow it? Does play into it. But for example, the fact that you are thinking today that you had to think that SpaceX, that space is having a
Earnings
earnings
call,
call.
maybe.
That's what I used to have to think about years ago, and I'm just done with it. I'm like, I don't want any mind share being given to this stuff. So let's
Yeah,
go.
very excited for that. Okay, so now let's zoom out a little bit because obviously you can look at the S&P 500 performance, and we're going stock heavy today. We're going macroeconomics heavy. Have you heard of this one ticker? And let me pull it up. I have a screenshot. I'll send it to you as well. Have you heard of this one ticker that basically looks at the S&P 500 minus the Magnificent Seven? Have you seen that one?
I've heard of this. I don't look at it now.
Cool. I'm going to send you the screenshot of it. So what do you think your guess is? So this is
Without the Mag 7 the
large
past year?
this is a large cap ETF that basically invests in the S&P 500 minus the Magnificent Seven. So it's called XMAG. XMAG is the ticker. And what do you think their year over year return is? So from August, I looked from August 5th of last year to August 5th of this year.
Oh, dude, that's tough because like Mag 7 popped. Oh, they were already at the peak. I'd say their returns have been like 8% to 12%.
Okay, just sent it to you.
6%.
5.8%. So then when you look at like an individualized brokerage account where you're moving things around and it's like, oh, did I outperform the S&P? But then it's like, well, if I'm mostly investing in ETFs, they're also going to be investing in the Magnificent Seven. So I guess I didn't outperform. It'd be interesting to look at someone's account that was not investing in the Magnificent Seven. Now, are you concerned about how much the Magnificent Seven are propping up the market? Because you could really look at it that way. I was doing some deeper chart analysis last night, and I'm no expert by any means. I was like, you could make the case that they're the only reason the stock market is having positive returns year over year.
Yeah,
consistent.
Yeah, like, but their products are so good. Like when you look at those products. So for example, Microsoft, they'll just create Zoom and bundle it into their Office product and make it free. Like there's so much moat around their product and their offerings, and it's all recurring revenue. And you're not like canceling your Google account, like you're not canceling your workspace. We pay tens of thousands of dollars across Augusta to just like to have workspace for all the owners.
Right.
So yeah, and it's not going anywhere. So it's so entrenched, it's so sticky, it's recurring revenue. No one can compete with their product, and if you do, they're just going to rip it off eventually and then bundle it in with their other product and service for free. So it creates a massive moat around their subscriptions. It's just great products. And so should that be legal and all the rest of it? I don't want to get into that. But and does it hurt competition? Yeah, probably. But the revenue is pretty secure, and that is like the bonds that these companies are putting out and getting debt is better rated than the US government. So like they have great terms of financing to be able to build these data centers and get ahead on AI. And so like, yes, them versus the AI startup, who's going to win this game? So this is where like verticalized SaaS and software is like, in my opinion, like the only way to go, is because if you're trying to like go create the next AI model, good luck. But if you can take that and be like, okay, how do I take these tools that they're building and then verticalize it and build the picks and shovels for this industry, then you can have a shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for those that maybe don't know, or I don't want to, act like a know-it-all here, because obviously I couldn't name the Magnificent Seven right off the top of my head. Potentially, I think I could, but it's Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, aka Google's parent company, Microsoft, Meta, so Facebook and all of their holdings, Nvidia, and Tesla. So that was something that you kind of tiptoed around, and I don't necessarily want to ask it directly. But at what point do those become almost, dare I say, monopolistic, in the sense that they are almost impossible to compete with at this point? Like, do you think that it even makes sense for other companies like to continue making phones, or will iPhones be the only phone in the next 10 to 15 years? Like, just to use Apple as a simple example.
Like, the cycles of business continue, which is, as we've seen with AI, Apple's been very, very much behind on this game. And so when companies get big, they have inherent deficiencies when it comes to being nimble and moving quickly. And so most of the time, their competitors will be upstarts that start off verticalized, nail it, and then slowly start to grow and expand until they become a formidable competitor. But that can take decades. And so, like, do I believe in 20 or 30 years we'll all have iPhones? No. There will be another company, and like they've proven this with the AI side of things. Like they're losing all their best talent. People are going to the likes of OpenAI and Meta that are very pro AI, and so they're really behind on it. Like Siri still stinks, and they were 10, 15 years ago they had Siri, and all these other voice agents have way better ability to be able to do stuff, and like so like they could have really crushed with Siri. what today you talk with chat that agent, it should be Siri. Siri was 10, 15 years ago they started doing this stuff.
Hmm.
And so a large company just starts to get slow. They start to not be able to attract great talent. Um, or great talent wants to leave, I should say. And so like it's just the evolution of the five stages of a business. And it gets eventually to where like they're very much like maximizing profit. They're going 8 to 10% a year. They're giving money back to shareholders. They're not investing a lot in R&D, like comparatively. And so that eventually that pans out. And like
Hmm.
they're a great company, absolutely. But what does it look like in 30 or 40 years? Like, yes, and this is proven like, by Nvidia. Like 5 years ago, no one knew who Nvidia was, and now they're the largest valued company in the world. And so, behind that is someone like Jensen Wang that was like working tirelessly for years and years and years. But the shoot up to the top went from upstart to the biggest company in the world.
Hmm.
And I think that's what happens when companies that like Microsoft or Google get a little bit lax, and then you have OpenAI and you have like Nvidia over the past 2 3 years just skyrocket. And so yeah, it's just always on top of mind. Like as we grow, even it's like until the day I die, like we can't enter that stasis
Hmm.
kind of mindset.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think with the iPhones too, obviously, I gave a bad example because as I was saying it, I was like, well, that's just not accurate because iPhones don't hold the majority market share across the world. Now, in the U.S., I was just looking this up while you were speaking about this, was that iPhones make up about 30% of the market share in the world, whereas Android is closer to 70%, and the Google Pixel phones have a very small percentage worldwide. Google Pixel phones have had a bump in the US markets, but iPhones hold about a 60% share in US markets. So I have a little bit of Western bias with that, whereas Android is actually the preferred phone worldwide. I don't know if that's due to accessibility or whatever it may be, but that's just the stats that I was able to find here on Statista. So obviously that's a bad example, but it's so that allows, iPhone to be a competitor worldwide. And I think that, for myself or maybe others that worry about these monopolistic Magnificent Seven is like, we're just looking at the Western world or even just US, whereas worldwide, they're still competing with a lot of brands that we don't even really care about or notice as much in the US because they don't hold market share in the US. Do you think that's kind of an accurate reduction or conclusion that people jump to without taking into account like global economics?
It just takes someone dominating the lower end of the market they don't access and then moving up market, right? So like because they have such huge market share of the high end of the market for mobile phones, the only way for really Apple to quote expand market share is to go down market and create like a $300 iPhone. Are they going to do that? No. And I don't recommend they would because it hurt their brand. But will there be a company potentially that has a really stellar $200 iPhone? It's like, okay, great. We now have crushed this. We have so much value. There are people buying our phone instead of their $1,000 phone. Okay, now let's go create a $1,000 phone, but it does things like Apple can never do. It's probably going to revolve around AI, and this is like why, in my opinion, OpenAI bought out Johnny Ive's startup when they don't really have a product, but they're creating the next iPhone, and it's going to be a different device, and it's going to use AI. And it's like that's probably the type of thing that would put the phone out of business or like compete with it at a level that Apple can't. But it's going to take a long time. Like it's very entrenched. Again, like you have your iCloud, you have your MacBook, you have your iPhone. Like the ecosystem, the moat is around it, right? But that can fall apart pretty quickly in 10, 15 years.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that is stock picks overall. Any other thoughts on stock strategies, what you see this coming year, anything that you're eyeballing, or do you just want to move on to another topic?
I think that most people, when they listen, they're like, oh my goodness, 15, 20% returns. These, first off, are on paper. And it is just numbers of shares and digits. Until it's sold, it's not realized gains. You will pay taxes on those. You have no control of those. Also, the stock market is extremely inflated in terms of their valuation, in terms of their price to earnings ratio. I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Lee, I think the S&P 500 is something around like 26 or 27 price to earnings ratio blended right now. It might even be higher, which is historically
See.
very high. Um, just do PE of S&P 500.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
I think it's like 26 or 27. It could even be higher.
why
You
is it
actually,
just like
if you go to IVV, it'll actually tell you too. I think it is. Let's see here. Price to earnings ratio. It's
And what?
27.65. So like historically, that's very high. So a price to earnings ratio, meaning that next year's earnings, we expect that 28 years worth of profits make up the valuation. Like that's a 28x multiple on the entire S&P 500. That's extremely expensive. And so for your business, your personal, whether it be home service or whatever small business you're talking about, if you have a 2 to 3x multiple and you're growing 40% year over year, you're running a 25% margin, I would rather invest in that business. And so I genuinely believe for the vast majority of people, they should just focus on building that because it's going to have better returns. It is going to be much safer because you control it. You're not going to be in debt. Like there's also billions of dollars worth of debt behind these companies. You have no control whatsoever. And so, yeah, that would be my side note is if you have less than $1 million, probably the money should be focused on building your business. And once you start getting so much capital that you can't deploy it efficiently, then you start thinking about these sort of strategies.
Yeah. Yeah. And to put that into context as well, if you're looking at the PE ratio for the S&P 500, sorry, it took me a second to find it. But I also was able to pull data here on the average and median. So this is a 50-year average before COVID. So we're looking
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Okay, 50-year average?
Yeah. So we're looking at 1971 to June 2017 or
Before
45-year
COVID.
average.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so it's
So it's
before
before COVID.
COVID. Okay, it's
Mhm.
probably like 13 to 15.
Yeah, so the average was 19.4, but the median was 17.7. So still drastically
Yeah.
overperforming, as you said, here in the last year or two.
Yeah, but it also shows like the value of the dollar and like the confidence in the dollar being lower. People move money towards the stock market. And the New York Stock Exchange and like the US stocks is still the safe haven of the world. And
Mhm.
so as like the value of bonds and like the debt, as we have less confidence that the US will ever pay that debt back, people are moving more money towards it. So it does get inflated, but like if you just step back for a second, you look at some of these PE ratios, like the average is 27.65. There are some of them that are like 100. Like I cannot reasonably buy a company that says we are valuing this business at 100 times what they're making next year. Like I have a really hard time with, especially with some of these companies that are only growing like 5% a year. It's like, okay, so like when is there ever gonna like the valuation of a business is determined by how much money can I get out of this company over the course of time and what my confidence level is that I'm going to be able to extract that capital. And so if you're not doing dividends, it has to be appreciation of the stock, which means increasing revenues, increasing profits, increasing operating margin. And I just don't see a lot of opportunities. And so I do think it's like inflated, but I also don't think it's going to like stop anytime soon because where else are you going to put your money? There's a bunch of capital sitting around. I'm not going to go buy U.S. Treasuries. The way that's going. So, anyways, I just think that the vast majority of people with less than $1 million in capital would be better off building a business, assuming they have the skills to do so, because you have more control. You're not paying these crazy valuations. Like to all of us, it's like these stock like little charts, but these are businesses. And the same business is like in your home, your backyard, and you won't invest in a business that has a 3x multiple on profit and like i.e. the valuation, like it made $1 million last year and it's valued at 3 million. Why would you do that? There are companies that are like publicly traded that would be valued at 100 or 200 million dollars for the exact same amount of profits. So yeah, that was my rant.
Yeah. Well, so what I did is I just quickly was Googling the PE ratio for the Magnificent Seven. They all range between 20 to 60, NVIDIA being one of the highest at 58. However, I went and searched Tesla's and they're at 181 is their trailing 12-month ratio. On average is 181.9. So what does that tell you based on that rant you just shared?
It like it's a confidence level that those earnings will continue. Right. So like Google, for example, is low on that end. I think it's 20 or 22.
And they were like, Google, Microsoft, and Alphabet is Google. Sorry, those were all like 20 to 30%. Nvidia was a little bit higher; it was like 60, and then Tesla is the highest.
Yeah, like the reason Alphabet, Google is so low is because like there's a low confidence that in 20 years we're going to still use Google search, which makes up all of their profit. So like the confidence in the earnings is the biggest thing. And so like when the reason that Nvidia is so high, the reason Tesla is so high is like no one's going to compete with these people anytime soon. But when you actually freeze it in time, say, okay, for the next 80 years, is no one going to displace these earnings? And I'm like, I don't think so. So it gets a little bit irrational, but again, it's because like where else do you put your money right now?
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, that is some stock picks, some macroeconomics with Mike. Figured we'd go back
Is the
down that
title gonna be
trail.
like stock picks with the boys?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Here's a not stock pick, space. So there you go. Just avoid at all costs. We'll see. Okay, I want to take a drastic shift here. If you got a little bit more time for us today, is you have also made a kind of recent change. So I guess in August you just decided to make changes. You have also made a recent change here inside of Augusta in terms of your advice in some ways, shape, or forms. So we have recently brought on a partner for Augusta in General Motors to purchase not used trucks, but new trucks. And this is a surprising shift for Mike Andes because, a lot of people like to, make the jokes that it was always we would buy used trucks, we'd buy old trucks. You put lipstick on a pig, you put the yellow paint on it, and hey, you're good to go. You can go make some money. Now you've started to shift a little bit more towards being pro new trucks. And now obviously we have some brand deals with General Motors. So that maybe makes it a little bit more enticing to buy new, but maybe walk some of the folks that aren't inside of Augusta through your new thought process around trucks and assets for the business.
So there's a few things, right? The major thing is that a used truck back in the day, I could get a decent truck for 8, 9 grand. And every single truck at the Bellingham shop prior to COVID was under $8,000. I think one of them I paid $8,500 for. Actually, that was during COVID. When COVID first hit, I paid $8,500 for my first truck. That was like above probably 7 grand. All cheap trucks. Now those same trucks, the ones that I've been using for 5 years, I just sold them for more than I bought them for. Like that's crazy. And so now to get a decent used truck, you're paying 15 to 20 grand. And so the delta between used truck versus new has become so much lower. And then when you look at the cost per mile over the course of years, it starts to get more and more favorable towards the new. Now, the bigger part is moving up market with Augusta, meaning we don't have the solo operating model anymore. We've made it the stringent financial requirements higher, means that the likelihood someone will stay in business for much longer is much higher. And if someone's going to, it's kind of like renting versus buying. If you're going to rent a house, if you're going to buy a house, you probably want to be there for at least several years. Whereas if you're going to rent, if you're going to be like bopping around town every 3 to 8 months, you probably should just rent. There's so much buying, the cost of like, real estate fees and inspections and all this other stuff. And it's the same thing with when it comes to used trucks and new trucks. If you're going to be in business for 2 or 3 years and flip the business, you should probably just buy used trucks. Get really cheap, get in the door, build up a customer base because that's what the real valuation is. There is no real valuation multiple in buying a bunch of trucks because they can just go buy trucks themselves. But if you want to build the business quickly with lower amounts of capital, potentially used is where you go, or cheap trucks, I should say. When it comes to new trucks, if I'm going to be having them for 10 years, and if you have a $50 or $100,000 mile warranty, means I never have to touch the transmission, never have to touch the engine, and these are surprise expenses that pop up and kill businesses. All of a sudden, 2 or 3 trucks go down, each of them have $5,000 to $10,000 expenses, just drain you in the middle of a spring rush. Not good. And so, assuming you are trying to be in business for more than 5 years, you should probably buy new because the cost per mile, when you actually extrapolate it out, and the resale value now being higher on the new truck allows you to be able to make sense of it. Also, the repair costs being lower. Now, there are usually going to be increased costs like insurance and like different states. We've even seen inside of Augusta. It's like some of them, it's still not quite worth it. It's still better to buy a truck that's like 1 or 2 years old and has depreciated by 20-25%. So I think it's very market dependent, but I think overall, when I just say new, I don't mean like brand new. I mean just like low mileage, like under 10,000, 15,000 miles, and within the last 1 or 2 years of being built. I'm very pro buying that if you're going to be in business for a long time. And the reason I'm more public now with Augusta is now with us having much more higher financial requirements, I expect people to be much more long-term focused and not like, I'm going to try this out and hopefully it works next year or two. But they're buying trucks and assets now for the long term. And if you extrapolate and do the math on a $20,000 used truck versus a $35,000 new truck, if you're going to spend 10 years with the truck, you'll probably end up with a better cost per mile on the new. And also, there's a lot of advantages now with the now that the accelerated depreciation is back to 100%, there's a lot of tax advantages as well. So if you're starting a second location, for example, and you have a very profitable location, I can now take 100% on a Section 179 instead of like 40%, which it was going to be otherwise without the new legislation. And so there's a lot more advantages now of me being able to take immediate depreciation on these trucks versus having to wait for that to come back to me on my tax return over the course of 5 years.
Mhm. Gotcha. So would you say, and this is like a massive oversimplification, but would you say, based on some of the verbiage you've used, that it is mildly short-sighted to purchase drastically underpriced or high mileage used trucks for your business?
I would say it's if you don't have access to don't have access to capital or credit, and you're thinking I'm going to grow this business very quickly and I want to sell it or get out of the business, or I'm just trying to make this like a lifestyle business. I'm not trying to keep this for 10 years. If you're like I'm going to be in business for 10 years, you should be probably buying relatively new. When I say new, I don't mean like going to a dealer. Potentially, it could be like I'm going to CarMax and I'm buying a truck that has 10,000 miles and was built 20 months ago. That to me is still new compared to what I used to buy, which is 10-year-old trucks that are all 50 to 80,000 miles and are going to have problems in 5 years.
Yeah, and I think that there have been owners in Augusta that have pushed back on some of the math as well. They say, "Hey, in my market, I can purchase this type of a truck. What are your thoughts on that?" So you're not anti-used anymore by any means. It just comes down to, let's look at the math. Let's look at the cost per mile. Let's also consider that a used truck could potentially have the engine go out, have the transmission go out, and there are certain warranties that you can get with new trucks. And I think that's something that everybody has to assess for themselves. And ultimately, I think it comes down to risk tolerance. Would you agree with that, or is it still more like long-term versus short-term vision?
Yeah, risk tolerance and like your ability to fix stuff. I'm not good at fixing stuff. And so like everything does have to go to mechanic. And so I think if someone's handy, they can definitely have an older truck and limp that thing along, get way more miles out of it. Like for me, my tolerance at probably 150,000 miles is probably where like, I'm okay, like these trucks are starting to break a lot. Like I got to get rid of them. Whereas if you're really good at, you're handy and you're really good with mechanics, you might be able to get all your trucks at 250,000. And so now the math becomes much more on your side to be able to, the longevity is so much longer. So yeah, it kind of comes down to your skill set too. I'm just not like mechanically inclined. I'm not going to go like switch out an alternator.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, one thing that I think is funny that you've been sharing as well, and I agree with the point, but it makes me laugh, is you're like, you also can't overstate the importance of like the comfortability of the
Yeah,
crew.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like
I
good
knew you
working
were gonna bring this
fleet.
up. I
I'm
knew
just
you were
like, all
gonna
right,
bring
yeah. I
this
think when
up.
I was in the field, we had one truck with AC, one. But that's fine. That's fine. Everyone gets their
Labor
AC.
market's change, Lee. We're adaptable over here. Come on now.
No, I think it's good. Like I'm always going to be pro employee. I'm always going to be pro. What can we do for them? How can we make their lives better? How can we, potentially squeeze out a little bit of extra output for small inputs, like making sure we have trucks with really good AC. That's generally a small input, and it'll probably help increase output. So I'm 100% supportive. I just had to throw my dig.
I also want to be clear that in the Pacific Northwest, you only need AC for about 2 months of the
Oh,
year.
I agree. I agree. I'm not going to fight you on that. I agree. I was even when I did have the one or two trucks that had AC, I was a windows down guy. I just like having the windows down. I like that breeze coming in. So, all right. Well, that is your stock picks. That is your truck analysis with Mike Andes today. Any not financial advice for the people as we wrap up?
Take it away, dude.
All right, so I have a quote. A lot of my non-financial advice is quotes, but I was doing some old Alex Hormozy video digging. So I watched a video from like 4 years ago that I remember loving. It was all about tonality in sales and how you communicate. And he had this one just beautiful little quote at the end of the video, and he said, "Sales is a transfer of belief." And so that was a really cool, just like, oh, that's all it is. So if you're struggling with sales, if you're down on sales, if you're not feeling confident in your sales, first believe in what you're selling, and then just think about, how can I transfer that belief to someone else? How can I convince someone else that this is the right thing to believe? It's very reassuring. So sales is a transfer of belief.
Let's go. Okay, so my non-financial advice is that most people should probably not get a cold plunge, but I got one and it's great.
Why would you? Why? Okay, why would you say that?
because I think most people would not use it. I think that most people would they'd use it for like a month and they would stop using it. But for me, it's been great. First thing when you get out of bed, 4:30, 5 o'clock, you hop in that bad boy. You're going from warm fuzzies to like 48 to 50 degrees. It's great. Now the one I got. So I didn't get like a super expensive one, but I got the one like the inflatable one. But then it has the machine, like where it cools it off, because like you don't want to put ice into a thing. That's the whole point here. It's like, oh, why do you need a $2,000 ice plunge, cold plunge? It's like, look, I don't want to be putting ice every morning
Yeah,
into
fair.
this thing. I want to.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is what's great, dude. You got the app. You set the thing. It starts at 4 a.m. So it starts cooling off for me. So once I wake up, I can just hop right in. It's already cold, and dude, it wakes you up, bro. It's like
What do you?
I still feel like little tingles of like in my feet, like 2 hours afterwards.
Are you? What are you bringing it down to? Like 50,
50, yeah,
45?
50. And
Okay.
some people say, hey, you can go lower.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan would say, if you're not in the 30s, you're basically a wuss. But like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm growing up over here. And
Yeah.
so, also, the help from a health benefits perspective, they say like under 50s doesn't really do a lot. I am not doing it for the health perspective. I just want to be very clear. I am doing it because it makes me feel good, and that's it.
That's fair. No, hey, to each their own. I think it's great. Every once in a while, I'll do like a cold shower. Just wake you up, just get you going. But yeah, a cold plunge, I don't necessarily see the benefit, but I respect it.
Dude, it wakes you up, bro.
Yeah.
If like, I wish I like one day I want to have one like right here. I get tired, just hop in real quick, 2 minutes,
I can
and
see
you are
that.
like, dude, you are awake. Like everything in your brain and you are alive. So I recommend it's better than a cold shower because I've
You
taken
haven't
cold showers for a
see.
long time, but it's no comparison whatsoever.
I also think that you can make the argument that it starts to become conditioning, and then the mornings you don't have it, now you're lagging. Now your body feels like it's missing something. Same like caffeine. Like people, oh, I haven't had my cup of coffee yet. Oh, I haven't done my cold plunge.
Bro, not a chance, not a chance.
All right, fair enough.
Well,
That's the pod.
in the other days where 90% of the time I'm able to do it, I'll laugh the person that 10% of the day doesn't get it done. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, well, that's the pod. Like and subscribe. Appreciate y'all.